All right, TiER1ers, I'm super excited. Oh, here we go. Can you guys hear me? Okay, awesome. I don't know why I muted. This is our last week in the Start the Conversation journey, and we're talking about support. It's been an incredible journey. I've had lots of people reach out and just talk about how this has affected them and how they've appreciated TiER1 investing in the time and energy. And I just want to thank everybody for giving all of us the chance to kind of talk about something we're passionate about. And this last week we're talking about, there's a ton of questions here, and it takes kind of a village to answer some of these questions. So I'm excited to have representative from Haran, United Healthcare, NAMI, and we've got Greg here representing TiER1 and Karen representing our coaching and offering here. And before we get into that conversation, I want to do a quick kind of like level setting, kind of bring us back to the numbers, help see ourselves in the numbers. So remember, there's the 1 in 5 diagnosed. We may or may not even know we have this going on, or it may or may not happen this year. And it takes a really long time for people to seek help. And a lot of that's around not understanding the signs and symptoms. And a lot of it is about feeling safe enough to talk about it in the first place. And that's kind of where we're talking about today, as we've done more and more research in this space of what helps people recover from mental health conditions or keep them away in the first place is to talk about them. And so when Deloitte did a study about how people feel about talking about mental health in the workplace, look at these numbers. So we've got 95% of employees intentionally miscategorize stress-related time off. They're lying. Basically, most people lie about why they're taking time off when it's stress-related. They don't feel like they can say, I got too much going on my plate, it's too stressful, I need time off. They feel like they have to categorize it as something else. The next one is 69% of employees would hide their mental health condition from coworkers. So if you did have something like depression or anxiety or OCD, there's this fear that if I share something, if I share with my coworkers that I have that thing, what will it mean to my relationship with them and how they perceive my work after they know? And then this last one is 80% of employees won't seek treatment because of fear and shame. So labeling the fact that it's they're afraid of what's going to happen and the way it will make people think of me, and the shame and around that experience is keeping people from talking. And so when we talk about getting support, a big part of that is our ability to be normal and talking about it, vulnerable and talking about it at work. So we took some numbers. You know, TiER1 is ahead of the game, but it's a sensitive topic. So when you look at the 2 questions we've asked TiER1 to compare ourselves against kind of like a national benchmark, there's 2 questions we asked. I'm afraid of getting punished for taking time off to attend to my mental health. If you compare us to the national average, we're kicking butt. But I think we should also recognize that it's still a super sensitive topic, and some people are still not comfortable with that. So if you look at 20-some% of TiER1ers, that's still 50 people or more questioning if this is something that they will get punished for. So I think we still got some work to do here in unpacking that. And this other one is my company. It's safer to remain silent about my workplace stress, and we got similar kind of results. So there's I think TiER1 is an incredible place, and I think most people agree. And it's just still sensitive, and it's still kind of a vulnerable place to be. And so I'm hoping that today, some of the conversation today will continue to kind of reinforce the idea that TiER1 is a safe place. And when we look at some of the numbers, we actually, if you're one of those 20% who said that it's not a safe place or you're afraid to share, what we do know is if you look at the change that we've seen in TiER1, where TiER1's culture is open and accepting to create an environment of trust that makes me comfortable to discuss and share my personal experiences regarding mental health and illness. Just in 5 years, look at the difference in the amount of trust and safety we feel, at least what we admit. I think a lot of it has to do with how transparent Greg has become and how verbose he's become about communicating where we're at and what's going on. And we've really spent a lot of time this month talking about mental health and that this is a place that you can bring that stuff forward. And it's part of our performance ecosystem. It is not separate from work. It is work. And so I just want to reinforce that message that it is safe. And so as we switch to talking about how we support each other, I want to just remind us that all of us, just all of us, are affected either personally or someone we love or a family member is affected by it. And so there's this constant, need for us to be navigating, do I need help? Do I need support? And how do I support people around me? And so that's what I'm hoping we can get a little bit more clarity on today. Some of the language that we heard in the responses is this. So I may know that something is wrong, but finding a resource to help is hard. Much harder than finding a doctor, traditional or holistic, to help me with a physical illness or health concern. There's also a great deal of limitation on insurance and financial support to get the services, which are very expensive. Another one said the sick times being decreased was hard. If you have medication imbalance issues while managing your problems, treatment, those days being lowered is bad because you have to balance those mental health issues while also worrying about your 6-day needs that may come up when you can't work. Taking mental health day seems to be only okay if your utilization numbers are okay, or else there are questions. And I know this is a sensitive topic, but I thought it was helpful to bring up that there's this, we've been talking about it, the intersection between our physical and our mental, and the way that shows up in the way we seek help is they're interconnected, and it can affect our mindset on how we think about taking time to take care of ourselves. And this other one, affordable options are for compassionate treatment is something they would be looking for. I'm currently seeing a sliding scale psychiatric nurse to get my SSRI prescriptions. I'd like to have more comprehensive therapy and treatment, but find the financial burden to be an extra stressor. So at the moment, I feel like I'm just putting a Band-Aid on my mental health. I wonder if there could be a support group for employees in this cohort. So I think there's a subset of people who have very specific medications they're looking for, and it's causing additional stress. So maybe we can get some more clarity on what that looks like. And we hopefully have people in the room who can get more clarity around why it is so expensive. And there's this, I think there's this desire that people are wanting more people to talk about their experiences. So if you're in that group, this is the kind of place you can bring those people together. So that brings me to kind of setting the stage for a conversation with these folks. We've got Greg Harmeyer, the Greg, our CEO, Karen Nelson, our internal coach, and I'm hoping we have Tammy. She might have joined here at the while I was getting kicked off here. We got Tammy Huff from United Healthcare, Heather Duell from United Healthcare, Nicole Tedford, and we got Heather Smith from NAMI. Sorry. So we're gonna kick it off here with Greg Harmeyer, and I'm gonna exit out of sharing my screen here and go straight to just seeing faces. Greg, can you let's just start with, this whole thing, mental health is something that's really important to you personally, and I know you've kind of brought that value into the organization. Can you tell us a little bit about why it's important to you as a leader in this organization? You're on mute, buddy. Hey, Greg, you're on mute.
Am I okay now?
Yep, I got you.
I'm not sure what happened. So yeah, it's good to be here with everybody. Thank you, Dustin. If I'm being really honest, I would say it wasn't really that important to me until about 5 years ago. We started in on this, as some of you will recall, more as a way for us to do some good for outside communities around mental health, recognizing that there was a need for it, but probably believing we were trying to reach a very small population of people, if I'm really thinking back on it. And when we started on this within TiER1, it was eye-opening to see the significant numbers that you already shared about how many people are affected. And of course, our family's been affected and many others, but nobody in our organization was talking about that. So we didn't know how widespread it was. When I look at it now, after learning for 5 years, there's two dimensions to why I think it's so important. There's of course the very personal side, like the fact that this affects everybody in our organization and everywhere else for that matter. Helping people do their best work, being their best selves, it's tremendously important to step into that, especially when it's such a hidden thing, when it's such below the surface type of thing. Just helping people find ways to deal with all that in a space in a world that there's actually, I would say there's limited options, but there are a lot of options. It's just helping give people the courage and knowledge to know what to deal with. So that's really important, to just help people from the personal side of it. But then I've come to realize over the years how important it is from an organization standpoint, ours or others. It is such a factor on how well organizations are able to perform, because when something like this consumes you, either because you're struggling with things or because somebody you care about is, that's going to have a significant impact on your ability to perform at your fullest and from a work standpoint. So I've told people recently, I think, we deal in the space of helping organizations perform at their best. I can't think of something that would be more important for organizations to step into to improve their overall performance of their business than this. I think it is just central to every single person in any organization. So, yeah, I think it's just critically important.
So, a juicy question is, the more that I've networked and tried to understand how organizations look at mental health and why they should be talking about it and being vulnerable at work, all the soft, squishy stuff. Why do you think most leaders share your value, and why or why not?
I think most leaders, yes, care about the well-being of people and care about and want them to have support for their overall well-being. I think a lot draw lines between the boundaries of work and the boundaries of home, and that this is stuff that's dealt with outside of work. I definitely don't think leaders consciously recognize the hidden implications this has on the organization's performance and success and health and well-being as an organization. I definitely think that's just not tangibly recognized because it's such a hidden thing, because it's not discussed, because it's not brought to the surface. People just don't recognize the significance of what's going on. Do they want to help more with individuals? I do think they want to. I think you say why not? I think one of the why nots is it can be scary and can be complex. And we get, even in some of the quotes you posted, it gets, when you're trying to design systems that support people, it's really hard to design systems that support everybody at the fullest and support the organization's overall success. It's just a difficult space, and so it's easier not to step into it very directly. So I think those are some of the reasons. It's complex, it's scary, it's not talked about a lot, and I think there's not a full appreciation at all of the implications and significance of it.
Yeah, thanks for the honest reaction. The way that you framed it up about like kind of touching the whole person and trying to create a system, you can kind of see that in the way that you guys have designed the benefits to support mental health. Would you mind kind of like giving like a quick overview of all the different things that are available to Tier 1ers to get help with their mental health?
Yeah, I think I can touch on them, Dustin. The way I would think about it is, I think there's maybe three big parts. There is time to deal with it. There is people and support, and there's probably a financial piece. And so if you look through those, in the space of time, it ranges from, starting with PTO. I think we have pretty generous PTO from day one for everybody. When you include holidays and flexible holidays and other paid time off, I think it's a minimum of 25 days or more. And the whole purpose of that, and we don't carry it over, which is always an interesting point of conversation. One of the reasons we don't carry it over from year to year is because we want people to take it. It's important for your overall health and well-being to take time away from work, and so that's why we do that. And so then there's a spectrum of other things that get into sick days and wellness days, and even the ability to take unpaid time and or sometimes paid longer-term leaves. So there's this whole space of time. And the spectrum of what types of time can be used to support different things. Then there's this idea of support. How do we help people have someone to go to? And that ranges from people internally, whoever your mentors and advisors are, to Karen's going to talk about her role as kind of an internal coach that can be there to confidentially support people with whatever aspects they're going through. We set that up over the past year, and I think it's been hugely impactful. To outside resources like our EAP and like our CARES program and even NAMI. So those are support resources. And then the financial piece is the contributions into insurance and benefits programs to help support being able to pay the cost of things. And so some of that's direct, and then again, even the CARES program, we launched an element, just a exploratory thing this year to see for rapid access in the space. But we're always kind of looking for how can we strengthen these things in systematic ways. But I think in those three big buckets. I'm not hearing you, Dustin.
I don't know why it keeps muting us. I apologize.
Okay.
So there's two things I wanted to cap. So time was one of them. And we had the specific mental wellness days. There were several questions about, like, and you saw the quote up front, about the perception of utilization and that being a factor in when it's okay or not okay. Can you just elaborate just a little bit more on scenarios in which we know it's definitely okay to be taking wellness days if you are already taking PTO days, just to paint a picture of like the mindset around it?
Yeah, well, I mean, we set up the idea of wellness days. Like, again, all this stuff's evolved, right? At one time, we didn't have any sick days. It was embedded. PTO was set up to include sick days, and then that created stress because people weren't taking PTO because they were saying, if I get sick at the end of the year, then I got an issue. And so we said, well, let's set up sick days. And how many? Well, maybe we'll do them unlimited. And then what we found is about half the company fortunately doesn't have to take any sick days, and of the other half, I think 95% took under 5. So we said 5 is probably the right boundary. Again, trying to create a system that makes some sense. So there's the sick days if I'm sick, and then in between we set up this idea of, like, there are times where you're not necessarily sick and you don't really want to take PTO, but you've just been working a ton, and so that was, and the work pressure builds up. And you've been working, inordinate amounts of either, hours and or stressful deliverables. And so when you complete a big deliverable on a Friday after a couple of long weeks of work, you take Monday and call it a wellness day to kind of recuperate. Go for it. That's what the idea of wellness days were set up to do, is to kind of offset the fact that we work in a profession that has high stress, it has high performance, has high demands. We know workplace is mental health challenges for people. Ours, for sure, every company does, every job does, but ours does in the industry we're in. There's just no question about it. We have high pressure deliverables. And so that was part of what the wellness idea was set up, is when you go through these phases where things are really intense, you have space and the freedom to be able to kind of offset it with time off. And then again, on the other end of the spectrum, I think we've had many people take various types of extended time off. Sometimes some of it's paid for based on how we set that up. Sometimes it's unpaid for. Or it's unpaid time off if people want to take extended, which I've done before. Some people have gone part-time to support different aspects. So there's just a lot of things that can be done with time to support where people are at.
I think thanks for articulating that, and I'll add to it, only because I was part of that initiative, choosing growth, and maybe Karen, you can weave this into your narrative too. But the attitude towards stress and seeing it as a positive thing in the work we do is another way that we help people manage it. Is like leaning into failure and not creating more fear around what happens if we don't deliver is another way that I think culturally we're embracing mental health in the way we respond to stressful situations. So I got time for one more questions with you, Greg. We've got two investments here, EAP and the CARES program. Can you just at a high level kind of just give us a sense of how they work and why you invested in them?
Yeah, well, both are new this year. And so the EAP, from my lens, like, there is the opportunity to get, I think, up to 6 sessions. I'm not sure the specifics of counseling. If you're looking for just someone to help you talk through things and work with you, but it's also there for, like, financial stress, legal stress, other things that can create stress in your life. And so this is, again, more of that kind of overall support mechanisms we're trying to set in place to say there's a lot of things that trigger stress, and again, including our own work, but these are outlets to help deal with it. The CARES program is run by the Leonard Center of Hope, and there's 2 elements to that. But the main idea of the CARES program is I think about it as a coach. Like, somebody in my family or somebody I know is really struggling with something, maybe me, but I think it's probably even better suited if it's someone else. And I just need some advice of what am I dealing with? Like, who could I go to? Why? What does this look like? And those questions informally came up a lot over the past several years to me, and I might connect someone to someone else. So we thought this was a great outlet for people to just have someone to call, to be able to just get perspective on kind of where to go and what to do. The other element of the CARES program, and this is more for the Cincinnati region right now, is this rapid access, so we can get people in to see somebody within like 2 or 3 days if they need urgent help. Now, we would love to find that same program in other cities if it goes well. But so those are just, again, different ways to try to set up support opportunities for people who need help.
That's awesome, man. And I can't thank you enough for all the advocacy you've done, not just at TiER1, but also in general. I know you speak all the time trying to help other organizations see the benefit of this stuff. So really appreciate that.
Thanks.
I'm gonna switch gears and let's so one of the investments that was made recently was actually the creation of a new role. And this was like, I think, a really cool synergy here where finding like this perfect fit for Karen, as well as meeting a need and a gap within TiER1, and that's this internal TiER1 coach. So Karen, would you mind just kind of like sharing a little bit about your role and how you help TiER1ers?
You bet. Yeah, thank you. Literally serving TiER1ers, serving the individuals that choose to reach out. It is confidential. It's really has been an experiment that Greg's been generous enough to let us try. But I partner directly with individuals. Most of my work it's probably 80% one-on-one and then some small group work with, but nothing much more than that. You are my clients. I partner with you. You choose the topic, the objective for coaching, and then I partner with you to make that happen. It's really founded in a strengths-based approach. So we really start with getting to know one another, and the topics can range just actually anywhere, all over the place. But usually it's just somebody that maybe feels something's off, maybe they're looking for something more, maybe there's a transition, maybe it's something outside of work that's getting in the way, or that it's creating some anxiety. And that is, that's really it. Sometimes we work to neutralize aspects that might be kind of getting in the way. And I do rely on quite a number of tools that we might use to assess whether it's Clifton Strengths, whether it's Zenger-Folkman, leadership, emotional intelligence, some of the other aspects. And some people come with a topic in mind, and some just have, again, like I said, need to go through a little bit more of a assessment or discovery process.
You know, so I can speak from personal experience, and also, so this is where I can kind of share. You know, in the first week, I shared that I went through a really rough year last year, and when I wasn't feeling like myself, I reached out to you as like, can you help me just navigate? You know, and we met for like maybe 3 months or so, every other week or so, and it was just, I can just tell, like, it was just so helpful to have someone helping to get me outside of my head and to reinforce the values and messages of TiER1 into the process. It's easy to forget like how much TiER1 and TiER1ers want to help you through that process. And so I personally experience how this fits into a mental health scenario. Can you, just in a more broad perspective, can you help TiER1ers see, like, how does what you do fit with mental health and wellness at TiER1?
Yeah, well, like I said, sometimes it starts with anything from, I don't really know what coaching is, but if it's an offering, I'm interested. And some people come forward with, I have something very specific. Some people, it's sort of a foggy thing that they want to go through and really uncover. So I like to kind of joke about the fact that it's a bit of a D3. So we start with really discovering and really a bit of definition, and then we get into really a stated objective of success. And I think a lot of it has to do, Dustin, with just a lack of judgment around it's okay to be human. Speaking out doesn't mean you're broken. I listen very intently and acutely for anything that I do think might be beyond my background, my education, my knowledge, and really refer people to the very things that Greg's been mentioning if I feel that there are programs that might help them. In most cases, I help people find their own resourcefulness and help them recognize they probably have an idea of what might be best. Dustin, I would say, even with you in our discovery and definition, it was you knew it was almost like you needed to be able to say it out loud so that we could pursue, just the healthier approach. So, yeah, it's a partnership is the only thing, but it really, I work directly with each individual as a client, and it's very adaptable and I would say customized to the individual. So I meet you where you are.
That's awesome. Well, and I really appreciate you bringing your passion to everybody. I know that you see a lot of people. Your schedule is pretty packed. So I thought maybe if I just kind of gave you an open question around what wisdom would you share for people who are either supporting themselves and maybe both supporting someone else to reach out. What wisdom would you give us after seeing so many TiER1ers?
Yeah, I think that the most frequent theme that I see would be kind of a self-imposed stress that can feel that we, again, as humans, can feel that we're being victimized by something. And upon further discussion, we can recognize there's so much within our control. There are many choices that we can make. And sometimes it's like, well, I feel like I can't take any time off. Well, can you really not take any time off? Have you asked? Have you thought of, the various ways that maybe we can reallocate work or delegate something or rely on your coworkers? So again, it's getting out of that almost like victim mentality and into more of a state of control. What can you control? What can you do? Instead of looking at all of the things that you can't do, let's look at the things you can. And I think there's a real TiER1, I don't know, high performance. I think that maybe asking for help might make me look less strong somehow, when in fact it's a sign of strength to say, wow, I could probably use a sounding board for this.
And I always think of, do you remember at the ACM, Liz Rusino's TiER1 talk, I am the giver of help.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
That's awesome.
Well, and I think a lot of times, or traditionally, I would say, professional life and personal life have been, sort of viewed separately, and they're not. Our whole lives are intertwined, and sometimes it's just taking down the veil of, I'm just tired, or I just want to be sad about this thing, or I want to. Maybe it's that I want to be excited about this. I've got something I've been wanting to do for years and I just haven't ever done it. Why not? Maybe it'll bring some fulfillment for you. So sometimes I just think the mental illness, well, I would say mental illness needs obviously help well beyond what a coach can do. I think mental wellness is something that each one of us has to take seriously, and I'm proud and honored to be able to serve in the role that helps people get to a better place, a higher quality of overall life, and certainly life at TiER1. So,
well, thanks for being our wellness navigator, my friend. I appreciate all the work you do, and I know others do too. So we're gonna move into our next panelist. We've got Nicole from TiER1 here. She is she's kind of our go-to first line of support when it comes to, okay, I think I need professional help. I don't know how I'm going to pay for it. I don't even know where to start finding somebody. Nicole is the person that if you pick up the phone and call our insurance company, she's probably one of the 2 or 3 people who's going to help us out. So Nicole, why don't you just do a quick introduction about who you are and how you help TiER1ers?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Dustin. Hi, everyone. Nicole Tedford. As Dustin said, I'm with TiER1 Associates, and for those of you who aren't familiar with TiER1, hopefully some recognize my voice as a familiar voice. TiER1 and TiER1 have been partners for, like over 6 years now, and I've gotten the pleasure to work with your team and the TiER1ers on all things employee benefits. And like Dustin said, I mean, really think of TiER1 as your advocate and as your champion to the world of insurance and the landscape that, can be really complicated at times. I'll be the first to admit that. I call myself an expert in this space, and I even find it complicated at times.
Oh no.
And that's why we're here. We are selfless in the work that we do, and we are determined to make sure that you can use the fantastic benefits that TiER1 has set up for you. And we work hand in hand with partners at United Healthcare and all of your other resources to make sure that you know what benefits you have, how do you access them, and like Dustin said, where do you even start?
So Nicole, give us a sense of, you probably have broad awareness of what access people have and what kind of the challenges we face as we're looking for mental health services and support. Would you mind just kind of quickly overviewing like what we have and maybe what wisdom and advice you would have for TiER1ers who may be about to start this journey or in the middle of this journey? Like, just give us a sense of what advice you would have for us.
Yeah, so as you think about the world of insurance as it relates specifically to mental health support, know that insurance looks at mental health like it would any other support that you may need. It looks at mental health just like it would a doctor's visit, just like it would a surgery, just like it would any other kind of medication. The key here is knowing exactly where to start, and I think that's a big barrier because there are so many resources that you can tap into. Just getting a starting point can be sometimes the hardest part. So that's really what the one thing I want you to take away from the conversation about insurance is it's covered. The key is going to be finding an in-network provider, making sure you understand how your specific benefit plan that you've enrolled in for you and your family is going to coordinate with your providers and what you might owe out of pocket for accessing that care. And we've got Tammy on the line, I think, to make sure that we've got Tammy on the line too. So I do want to let her talk a little bit because she is with United Healthcare, but that's really, there's a broad range of things out there with United Healthcare, but know that it's covered. The key is going to be finding an in-network provider, which I admit is tough sometimes. The providers in this space work really differently than the providers, at your big hospitals or something to that extent.
Here we go. Come on. So I guess now would be a good time. Let's go ahead and switch it. Switch over. Oh, okay. I know it keeps trying to work, but I wonder if. Hey, Nicole, I'm so sorry. You were cutting in and out there. So I wonder if maybe we could. I just want to clarify. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding when you say it's covered, basically whatever plan we have. Like if we have a high deductible plan, and once I pay that deductible, then it's all covered under that. Like that whole thing works the same way with any mental health provider, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And the key to covered is the network provider and the provider that you choose to go to. So that's really going to be as you start down this journey of needing professional support. That will be one of the biggest. I'm just full transparency. That will be one of the biggest barriers, is making sure that you're accessing a network provider to make sure that you understand what your out-of-pocket costs will be.
Okay, so let's kind of dig into that. And you introduced Tammy here. We got Tammy from United Healthcare. So let's switch to Tammy. And Tammy, help us understand who you are, how you connect to Nicole, and how you help TiER1ers. And then we'll dig into specific questions about how we find an in-network therapist.
Absolutely. So I work as part of the account management team alongside Kyle and Scott, who you probably know very well as well. My expertise is in behavioral health. So when we had this panel discussion today, because I know insurance and I know behavioral health, they invited me to join. So thank you. So we work very closely with all of the different partners with TiER1 just to make sure that all the different benefits and great things that United Healthcare brings are accomplished and are delivered in the way that TiER1 expects. So we're all a very tight team, and all kind of have our little alleys, but yet we all kind of know enough about everything to be dangerous, if you will. Mm-hmm. So to your point earlier, and Nicole was saying that it's covered, there is across the benefits, all the different levels of care are definitely covered. And according to, again, what Nicole was saying about according to plan design and that type of thing, and the biggest goal is to stay in network within a network provider. But some of the things that are covered are things like all outpatient care, inpatient care. We do telehealth, which is really big, especially now, right? We don't get to go to those behavioral health visits because of COVID and that type of thing. That telehealth has really taken on a life of its own. And so those just like in on the medical side, behavioral health virtual visits are also covered. You do have, we have a cool app called Zenvelo, which is an app on the App Store that you guys may have heard about. It's a self-led type of cognitive behavioral therapy that we can give you more information about it as well. But again, the way to get in, the way to find those providers, which is the first step, is to know where to call. And we want to make sure that everybody knows that. So we either someone can go online, which everybody goes online. So there's myuhc.com, which is that United Healthcare portal, but then also what we call liveandworkwell.com, which is the behavioral health portal that links right off of myuhc. Both of those places are great places for all your employees to go to find providers, to find information about how to access care, and find out information about their benefits. But if you just really, I'm sorry.
Well, I was just gonna, so you've mentioned 2 resources. Can you just remind us what those are and in a specific scenario you'd use each?
Absolutely. So I think that, if you want to understand what your benefits are, just how much do I owe, how much, 'cause that's usually the first question, right? Is, what's this going to cost? myuhc.com is the place where you go to find that information, and it'll give all the information around the type of benefits, how much you have left of deductibles and those things. And that's really important for people to understand, is what's this going to be out of pocket for me? And then the next thing is finding a provider, and that is on myuhc.com as well. However, there are also little links and things on myuhc that will say, do you want more information about mental health? And there are links that will, if you click on the link, take you out to the Live and Work Well, single sign-on. You don't have to re-sign in anything. Take you out to the behavioral health portal, if you will, where there is, again, provider search, but also content, lots of information, phone numbers to call. So myuhc is the first stop. That's awesome. All the information is there. But then there's ways to get to the more specific mental health information.
So let's talk about a journey. All right, so we're always about the experience, and I actually have found this. I own a counseling business, and I'm still confused by this journey, by the way. If I have a physical problem, right, and most of us, a lot of people have physical symptoms in their gut when they're anxious or nervous, or the stuff going on in their head is affecting their body. A lot of it happens in our gut, okay? I have that symptom. I'm pretty convinced it's not what I ate last night that's causing it, and I think I need to get help. What's your recommendation for getting help?
Well, there's a phone number that people can call for a couple things. So first, if, again, someone's really into the digital thing, I would logging on to myuhc and just looking for resources and asking for that information. If someone has the inclination that it's more a mental health or behavioral health type of thing, again, there's different tabs in myuhc that will take folks out to that behavioral health information. And there are all kinds of phone numbers listed in there. Your United Healthcare Advocates customer service team, if someone wants to call in and say what you just said, I'm feeling this way, I don't know what to do, they're going to be able to guide your employee accordingly. We do have a team of behavioral health specialists that they can be sent to kind of listen and triage the situation. And those people are therapists, so they'll be able to listen to cues. We call them cues and clues, but to listen to that information and know what to do next. They're very smart people. I'm a little biased, but that's the best place to start, I think, is if the website isn't really for somebody, or if they just get frustrated, just call United Healthcare, and those folks will be able to guide them and steer them accordingly, help them find a doctor, maybe get them to a clinician that can help them. So can you tease out the difference between, okay, so I go in, maybe I call, we find an in-network therapist, and at that point my coverage works the way it's supposed to. How does that intersect with an EAP? Like, what's the difference? Help us tease out where the differences are there. Yeah, so they're two different benefits, right? The EAP is typically a benefit that is not, it's fully funded, so there's no cost to the employee, right?
Okay.
The provider, the networks may be different. I hear you say that you have a new EAP program, but the provider networks are so big that if I'm using an EAP, a counselor for an EAP visit, and I need to then use that same provider for a BH visit, the networks typically intersect pretty well. But the EAP is a program where the employee doesn't have any front end cost, as compared to behavioral health that they will. The reasons they would use either one could be the same. Typically, you go to the EAP for things like panic or anxiety or stress or depression that's relatively episodic, or it's really being influenced by what's going on today. And as your counselor, you probably know that there's a lot of stuff going on today, but those can be usually be addressed by the EAP. Sometimes conditions maybe warrant a behavioral health visit, like substance use or something that is going on that's a little bit more than the EAP. But usually, or for the most part, the EAP can address them on the front end. And then if you need more different kind of care, those EAP clinicians will advise that way accordingly.
That's so helpful. Actually, it's starting to click in my brain a little bit better about the intersection between those two. So if I'm back on my journey and maybe this turns into a situation where I have medication, is there any difference in medication coverage for mental health services versus physical?
No, it's all according to plan design. So the medication will be prescribed and it will run through the plan just like any other pharmaceutical.
So I got a really tough question for you then, because we had several, and you probably, I don't know if you were on, but we heard the quote about the cost and a cost associated, and why all this stuff is so expensive and hard to navigate. Why is it so expensive? Like, just give us maybe it won't make us feel better, but can you give us some perspective?
Yeah, yeah, boy, if we could solve that question or answer that question. Here's the deal. Behavioral health typically isn't as expensive as I think one would think. And you guys, if the benefits, it sounds like you are provided, your employees are really strong and they will pay the same as they do on medical. That's the beautiful thing about behavioral and medical, is that there are no different rules. But there's a sense of being a good consumer, I think, as well. Staying in network is really paramount, because then those providers will only bill what the contracted rates are, and we work really hard to make sure our providers are only charging what is standard across the market, and that really, quite honestly, is affordable. As far as medications and things go, that's something too, that if a prescription is prescribed and it's more than what they can afford, we really need to empower our employees to say to that doctor, is there something else we can try that is equivalent, but I have this type of health plan. I have a high deductible health plan, so I can tell you I've asked this question more than once. You got something else that is gonna hit me so hard in the pocketbook that's gonna give me the same type of care that I need. So it's really a matter of just informing. Consumers can ask, how much is this visit going to cost me before I come? Because I need to be prepared for that. But if staying in network, I gotta, Nicole hit it right on the head. You got it. Those contracted rates are something we work really hard to make sure, the provider's getting paid enough so they want to be in our network, but also that it's something that a member can afford.
Good stuff. Well, I also want to recognize that, the therapist that you're seeing, maybe you're coming into Tier 1 and you've been seeing a therapist or a psychiatrist or psychologist, and they're not in network. Yeah. Or maybe you just don't, maybe sometimes it's about fit. Maybe you're not satisfied with the quality of care you're getting with an in-network therapist, because the margins are very different in the in-network provider versus a cash-based service. So there's a different level of care that you can get in the different kinds of work they do. How would you, what options for payment or repayment exist for people who go out of network?
Well, there's out-of-network benefits. So quite honestly, there is a benefit there that allows for folks to make those choices. And that's one thing that is also really great about some of these nice plans, is they're saying we want you to have that choice. There's, for folks with high deductible health plans with HSAs, HSA dollars can be used again to pay those deltas, that the member could experience from going out of network. But I think that again, allowing out a network caregiving and allowing a network benefit kind of takes some of that gap away.
Well, Tammy, you have been a delight, and honestly, I love that you were bragging about your team. That actually gives me a lot more confidence and energy around going to call your team. And there's a couple comments in here, and Yammer actually plussing up your comment about my UHC, saying it was a helpful tool. So we'll make sure we capture those links and put them out on the Yammer group. I just appreciate your time and energy, and you too, Nicole. I'm gonna kind of switch us into a different frame here for the last little bit of this segment. I've got Heather Smith from NAMI, and NAMI is a national organization that provides access to care and support at a national level. They're a nonprofit, and Heather actually helped us start the conversation with Dr. Keck 5 years ago. So it's actually really cool to have her in the room with us again today. Heather, would you mind just giving us a sense of who is NAMI and who do you help, and maybe how do you intersect with Tier 1, if at all? We're not hearing you, so if you're talking, you might be on mute.
I appreciate this opportunity, and I think what I'd like to encourage people to, just as a broad sense, think of NAMI as mental health support at no cost. So it's not direct services. We don't provide therapy or counseling. But you can access NAMI at no cost to yourself. And I think that's important to know in this climate where we are on high deductibles, a lot of us. So NAMI is a grassroots organization. And what that means is NAMI is made up of people who are either managing their mental health condition, living with a mental health condition, or loving someone who's living with a mental health condition. And so the thing about NAMI that's really unique is that we bring that lived experience. So when you're talking with someone from NAMI, they know what you're going through because they're going through it themselves. They might be a little further, down the road on the journey. And so it's just important to realize that no matter what city you're in, you can access NAMI's help. So NAMI.org is the thing to keep in mind, because from NAMI.org you can find your local affiliate. And with NAMI, you have opportunity for education. And I always say that stigma, it can be self-stigma that keeps us from, reaching out and getting help. So a lot of that is lack of knowledge about what mental health conditions are. And that's another great trustworthy place, easy access to learn about different mental health disorders, all of them. NAMI is a trustworthy, reliable site for that. And we provide support groups as well as these education classes and one-on-one, also like an empathetic ear. We're not a warm line, but at the same point in time, we can help people identify the next step and even help them kind of take that next step. So that I just want you to think about NAMI. Everyone has access to it, and everything is at no cost.
A great summary, and I mean, even in the quote we heard in the beginning, the desire to be able to talk about some of this stuff with people who have been there and can appreciate it. It just changes the whole dynamic of the conversation, and there's an interest and need for it at Tier 1. Can you, and I'll also plus up, like, NAMI is a great resource for finding information. We have referenced so many of your guys' visuals and stats and stuff, so it's a great resource for kind of wrapping your head around what's out there and what's true. And the screening tools you have, we've also referenced a ton in our experience. Let's make it made a little bit more clear in terms of the experience. What is a scenario where you would recommend Tier 1 or reach out to NAMI versus compared to all the other access they have through Tier 1?
Well, yes, I want for all of you who have worked for other companies before Tier 1, you probably recognize the wonderful access you have to care for your mental health and for your brain. So just have to say that you have many opportunities. I think group support is something that can be reached out for. Again, it's anonymous. Sometimes you want to be with other people who really aren't connected with you. Sometimes there's a feeling of being able to be just more candid about what you're going through. So I think that's one. And I would really encourage people who are either dealing it with themselves or loving someone to really get educated. So when we want to help someone who's dealing with it, the more we come from it from a accurate understanding of what's going on, we are more able to be helpful to them. So sometimes it's just, you do have a lot of direct access, which a lot of people do not have, as far as being able to call someone at their health insurance to really help them take that next step. So I think too that NAMI is something that can help people with stigma, because it is true that we're working on stigma and reducing it, but it still definitely exists. And that can be what keeps you or me from actually taking a step. Mm-hmm. And I'm not one of those people, right? I'm not one of those people. I am not in that category. So understanding that mental health conditions they're neurobiological, as well as psychosocial, but actually there are things that are amiss in the brain. And I think it's really important for us to realize that just as you would, it would be to your detriment if you did not treat high blood pressure. You know that it would have consequences on your body. It is the same for mental health conditions. Not treating them can lead to damage in the brain, and that's, I think, important for us to know. If we think about it in the same way as I like to say, they're all physical conditions because it is just, I always say it's just the organ above the shoulders. I think that's a part of it. So educating yourself, I think, is real important, both for your being open to actually taking a step to get help, and also to helping those you love.
Thanks for that, Heather. And I actually referred to the no casserole issue, no casserole illness in the first week. We were kind of setting the stage for it. So you've already brought some of that thinking about the connection to the brain and the physical condition to this journey. I'm super thankful for your time. We've got.
Can I say one more thing?
Oh yeah, please.
I know you can't see me like raising my hand or anything, but I want to, for individuals that are wanting to help someone who maybe isn't open to help, I think it's very important to be their ally, to partner with them and come at it together. And that can be helpful to that individual. And I think that's really important for us to recognize. We don't want to be adversarial. It could be our spouse, and becoming adversarial about it won't help us. Ultimately, it is the individual's decision to make, but coming at it from the standpoint of being an ally, of being a partner in this together. And again, the education you have will help increase your empathy, which is also an important factor for helping others that you love. So thanks.
That's such a good reminder. I really appreciate you bringing that up and raising your hand, even though we couldn't see it. Heather, you're awesome. I really appreciate you taking the time. We've only got a couple of minutes here, and there's a couple more things I want to close the loop on. So first of all, before I say thanks to everybody, I've got, where's it at? Silver did something for me here. Oh, you anticipated it. He actually, behind the scenes here, put the United Healthcare website in a link to where Tammy was talking about. So if you're interested in that, that's where it's at. The other thing I thought I would do is just kind of give us like a quick little snapshot here. We covered a lot of ground, and I'm so grateful we had all these awesome folks here to kind of like map it out for us. But I thought we would just kind of, let's put it all on one page, just pretty quickly here. If you're not feeling like yourself, gosh, check your thinking, talk to someone you trust, Are you taking time away, PTO, sick, wellness, whatever you call it? Just are you getting time away if you need it? And then would a coach help navigate it? And then reach out to Karen. If you're in a place where you're saying, you know what, it's been going on for a long time and something's certainly not right, I think I need professional help, you've got options. If you need it to be covered financially, we got the EAP to get you rocking and rolling. We've got the in-network support for therapists. And if you feel like your physical stuff is getting in the way, go to your primary care physician to get started, if that's the easiest way for you to start. I will say here as a caveat, when you talk to people who are trying to find the right therapist, do not settle. If you call and you get a terrible experience, don't settle for it. Find something that's going to work for you. Find a relationship that's going to work for you, and don't settle for it. It probably will take a couple calls. It's just like finding the right consultant. You want to find somebody that you relate to and someone who's going to take care of you and think about your experience. And so I'll be honest, if you call and you don't get a great experience, stick up for yourself and find one that works for you. And this last one is, if you prefer to work out a network therapist, you've always got access to your HSA as a part of that coverage. And there's other online services that you can provide that will help you navigate the insurance, because sometimes it will be covered out of network costs. And if you're in a place where you need urgent help, we've got the CARES line right here, just reference TiER1. Not only will they help you navigate with perspective, but they'll also get you an ASAP if you need it. And there's trained counselors if you feel like you need it, or a tech service at MHA that you can get support through. I'm gonna close by just going back to our challenge for this week. Start the conversation, just in its name, is about normalizing. It's about when we talk about it, when we listen compassionately, we start normalizing, just like Heather was saying, the stigma is real. And it shows up in all these like very real kinds of ways at work that are just, we don't even see them and recognize them because they're so normal to not be normal to talk about it. So if you feel like this commitment card is helpful, that's cool. If you haven't shared your story and you think it would help somebody, share it. Doesn't have to be on Yammer, but just a conversation. The more we talk about this stuff, the more it doesn't feel like it's separate from everything else in life. And I also want to say thanks. There have been a ton of people who have helped create the experience, the guidebook, the reflections, the stories, the panelists, the communications, the text, the visuals. I mean, there's just so many people. The graphs, the feedback loops. So I just appreciate it. And then we've been watching some of the stats, and we've had over 100 live participants every single week on these panels. So I just want to thank everybody for just being a part of this. We're going to ask for feedback one more time before probably early next week as we start thinking about, well, how could we continue to take this into other organizations? So if you have input or feedback from us, we would love to hear it. And Greg, I'm going to ask you to close with just maybe a quick reflection or thought for us. I did want to say thank you to Devin Campela. She has been a huge help in kind of producing all this stuff on the back end. You guys have not seen her, but she has made this whole thing run smoothly for us. So Devin, thank you. Greg, I'm gonna exit out here. Can I just get you to just kind of do a quick close and reflections on the whole month of May?
Sure. Thanks, Dustin. So I just first want to echo thanks to you, Dustin, for hosting these. These panels have been great. Thanks to all the panelists today for being a part of it. I think I learned a lot just listening to everybody. And I just want to hone in on and thanks to that entire team. So much work is done for this. Start the conversation. When we started it the first time, I feel the same way this time, that if we reached 1 or 2 people to take action, then all this work and time was worth it. I think we've reached a lot more in different ways. And I want to hone in on the thing that you said there of normalization. I think that when we go back to what organizations are doing, I think that's one of the biggest things that we need to do in our organization and any organization across society, is to normalize this, to help people understand that mental health is just health. And we've got to have the courage and knowledge to take action and to deal with it when we see signs of things that are going awry. And I think we're getting better at it, but there's a long way to go. So I just want to encourage everybody to just take that step, whatever it is. If it's for you, or if it's somebody you love, your family, a friend, take that step. And that step may simply be, starting the conversation, saying a word, sending a text, sending a note, talking to somebody, whatever it is, just having the courage to take the step, continue to get knowledge, and recognize that there's a tremendous amount of support around us to be able to help. So hopefully that this has helped in that regard. I really appreciate the time and energy everybody's invested in this. It may pay, hopefully it's paying off for some people right now, but I guarantee you in the time ahead it will pay off for people, because I saw it last time, how many people came back a year later and said, I'm thankful I learned so much because I was able to deal with the situation that's coming up in my life now. So so thanks to everybody who's put it together. Great job, Dustin, and great job, team.
Thanks, Greg. And to send us off, we got good old Gnarls Barkley. Thanks everybody for joining.